Hello again, my YouTube friends. Well, finally came in. 50 tooth spur. A lot of people wanted me to do a video of how to change a spur, so here we go. First, remove castle fan. I'm using a power drill. Tightening, I set it on 1, so it has very light. But loosening, I set it to 7. So the first thing you gotta do is take your spur gear cover off. And if anybody's curious what kind of power tool this is I'm using, it's a Black & Decker 20 volt, the 1500 milliamp hour lithium. So you get that done. I'm using an 18 tooth spur. You're going to have to remove the motor. So you gotta flip it up. And there's 4 screws to hold the motor in place. Now remember, never tighten down bolts going into plastic with a power tool because you will strip the plastic. I am only loosening them, and when I tighten them down, I use the loosest setting on the clutch so I don't strip out the plastic in the truck, because you definitely don't want that in the engine. Wait. Okay, now I'll put it down. Make sure the motor's loose, and it is. So we're just going to put this to the side, and then down in here we're running an 1850 tooth, so you got to move the pins to give it a proper setup, and the middle is the 50. So 1850, we got to move the pins to G. I don't know exactly how Traxxas did this. They probably did a bunch of different settings with all of their different gears. It goes all the way to from a 54 to a 46 tooth spur. They suggest if you go to what I'm going to, you need to run it on 4S, but with all the fans I have running, I won't have a problem, because I have 2 ESC fans on either side of the ESC itself and the fan inside the ESC. And then these fans I have reversed, so there's air being pushed in by all these fans, and these fans are sucking the air back out, so there's a lot of airflow. So the motor pins are put in place. Now we have to remove the spur gear covers so we can get to the spur gear. A power tool really makes these kind of jobs go a lot faster. Just really, if you don't know what you're doing, take your time. That's the number one thing. So once you get that loose, your spur gear assembly will come out. And like I've stated in the past, this has a double reduction drive. You have your first pinion here, and then your spur here, and then you have your second pinion right here. That goes down to your plastic final drive. Let me use the flashlight on my... Right down in there, that gear right there is your final drive gear. I did another video about this, about the gearing of the X-Maxx. So now that you have, also stated in another video, one thing I really don't like about this truck is this pin right here. All the power is transmitted through this pin to this second spur gear. I haven't had a problem with it, but that is a lot of power. They said that they got, Traxxas says that everything on this is spline, but there actually is a pin holding a gear in place. So now you're going to take, here's the T-wrench. I just had it. Where the hell did it go? There it is. So now you're going to take your old spur gear, and that's actually held on with a 2mm. So get out your 2mm Allen wrench. Traxxas supplies you with every wrench that is needed for this truck. Just simply loosen the bucket. I'm going to use my power tool to take them off and to put them back in, because it's actually going back into metal. I'm just going to set the clutch very low. So there's 3 gears that hold the spur tooth in place. 1, 2, 3. And then your spur gear will come off. Now is a good time to check out your entire slipper clutch. Tighten it if you want. Now is a good time to tighten it all the way down and then back it off. I see inside it actually does have a spring. So I will show you how to properly adjust the spur gear on this. I don't have the right size. It comes with this wrench as well. I mean, it comes with every wrench you need to work on this vehicle. I just have to find it in all my... Okay. Here's the wrench that comes with this vehicle. All you do is take your spur gear, and just tighten this thing down as far as you can. And then back it off. For general bashing, a half a turn. So there will be some slipping, but not a lot. If it slips too much, you will have a lot of heat build up and your spur gear will melt. So, got your 50 tooth. Take it out of the bag. And all it is a reverse of everything you just did. Take it, match it up to the one you're just using. Make sure everything fits. This is the old one. Just remember how it goes on. It just slips down in place. It's actually held in place by all these little notches. These metal notches. There's little places on this, so there's 6 of them and 3 screws. So it's not just the 3 screws holding it in place, that just mounts it to the spur gear assembly. So now you want to start the screws with your hand, because you definitely don't want to cross thread them with your hand or with a just a regular Allen wrench. Just get them started, because if you cross thread in the metal, you're screwed. It's not like plastic where you can bite new threads and make new threads with like self-tapping screws. With metal like this, if you cross thread it, you are screwed for good. You have to buy a new part. So take everything, tighten it up. Like I said, when I put things back together, I like to do it by hand. Like right now, I'm hand tightening it. And when I assemble everything back in, you'll see that I will use the drill, but you'll hear the clutch. So like right now, I'm going to get my drill out. It's set to 7 right now, but I'm going to set it all the way down to 1. And this clutch sort of works like an impact wrench. You can hear that racket that it made. That's the clutch slipping, so not too much torque is applied. And now you've changed your spur. So put your spur gear assembly back together, put the pin through, put the secondary pinion on, put the bearing in place, just like that. Slip it back into the truck. You got to hold this bearing in because it will fall off, and you definitely don't want to run without a bearing. So that's in place now. And like I said, just reverse order of everything else. Get your screws back in the plate that holds the spur gear assembly in place. Put it back in place. With this and this inner cage that sort of protects everything, I've noticed it's better to have your screws in it, because getting the screws in place are pretty difficult with this thing. And again, seeing that these screws are going into plastic, I will start them by hand. Sorry, my hands are in the way. But you see that I'm starting them by hand. Inside, the screws are longer because they have to reach down to a certain point. So I start them all by hand to make sure that they're grabbing the correct thread so I don't screw it up. Then I'll take my drill, still set on 1. Oh, shoot, I'm using the wrong size bit. That was 2mm, I gotta use 2.5. And as you can hear, it's not over tightening it. That's what the clutch is for, to make sure you don't over tighten. But at the same time, that clicking sort of works, like I said, as an impact. So now I set it up to 2. The clutch I set to 2 now, just to give it a little more torque. And then I'll do my final tightening by hand, which doesn't take long. So then you take your T-wrench, tighten all the screws down by hand, because you definitely don't want to, you want to feel how tight they are. You don't want to let a machine do it and then be too loose and your spur assembly fly out. Take your motor, just simply drop it back down in place. It'll line up with the pins that you just set. But that's basically it. You've changed your spur gear. You just put the motor back down in place, tighten it down. Oh, I didn't move the second pin. Where'd my pliers go? Damn it. Don't you just hate it when you're working on something, you put a tool down and then you go to look for it, you can't find the fucking thing. There it is. I didn't move the second pin over to G. That's why it wasn't aligning. But like I said, I'm running an 18 tooth pinion and 50 tooth spur. Damn it. This is an annoying part. I don't like this. It's much easier to get a piece of paper and set it yourself to make sure that the gear mesh is right. Because with this, you're just going by what Traxxas says. Okay. Motor's back in place. Everything's meshed. Roll the vehicle back over. Get your screws back in. And like before, start it with the wrench and make sure you're grabbing threads. As you see, I'm just making sure that the screws are grabbing threads before I go to put a power tool on it, because definitely don't want to screw it up. I know most RCers know how to do this kind of stuff, but I've noticed with this vehicle, a lot of people are getting into RCs because for this size of vehicle, this is about the cheapest you can go for four-wheel drive electric. The closest vehicle to this for about the same price would be the Losi DBXL. It's the Desert Buggy four-wheel drive. It's a 5th scale vehicle. So again, and you want to do a star pattern. You want to go diagonal. So tighten down all your screws. Use your wrench, your Allen wrench. Tighten down by hand, get it nice and tight, not too tight. You don't want to strip the plastic. If you do go too tight, you will strip the plastic. And then you'll have to buy new motor mounts. Thankfully, Area RC is actually making aluminum upper A-arms. But that's it. You've changed your spur on your X-Maxx. All you do is put your 2028 fan back in place. You don't have to, a lot of people say to cut these off and zip tight to the rails, but if you do it this way, it's a lot easier to get on and work. Oh yeah, you still got to put your spur cover back in place to cover the pinion and spur gear assembly. But that's it. That's how you change spur gear on an X-Maxx. So again, until next time, peace.